In the twilight years of the Roman Empire, a disgraced gladiator named Marcus Aurelius Calvus purchases a crumbling villa on the outskirts of Rome for a pittance, drawing mockery from the elite who once cheered his name in the Colosseum. Unknown to them, Marcus harbors a secret worth 99 million denarii, not in gold or treasure, but in something far more precious. As his past collides with his present, Marcus must navigate betrayal, redemption, and the true meaning of legacy while protecting the most vulnerable souls in Roman society. This is a story of how one man's greatest defeat became his most triumphant victory, and how the laughter of the cruel was silenced by an act of love that would echo through generations. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Forum Romanum as Marcus Aurelius Calvus limped through the crowd, his weathered cloak doing little to hide the scars that mapped his body like roads across the empire. Once, these same streets had echoed with chants of his name, Calvus, Calvus, as he was carried on shoulders after his victories in the arena. Now, the whispers that followed him were of a different nature entirely. "There goes the fool," Senator Quintus Maximus laughed, his purple-striped toga pristine in the afternoon light. He stood with a cluster of patricians near the Temple of Vesta, their gold rings catching the sun as they gestured, mockingly. "Did you hear? He spent his last Aurarius on that cursed villa, outside the city walls, the one where old Crassus died, screaming about shadows in the walls." Marcus heard every word as they intended him to. His jaw clenched, but he continued walking, his left leg dragging slightly, a memento from his final fight in the arena 3 years ago. The fight that had ended everything, the fight where he'd refused to kill a young Thracian boy who reminded him too much of someone he'd lost long ago. "Calvus?" Senator Maximus called out, his voice dripping with false concern. "Surely you haven't forgotten your old admirers. Come, tell us about your grand purchase. I hear the roof has more holes than a fishing net, and the walls are held up by prayer alone." Marcus stopped. Slowly, deliberately, he turned to face them. At 43 years of age, he still cut an imposing figure despite his injuries. His grey eyes, the color of winter storms, held a depth that made younger men look away. The branded J on his shoulder, marking him forever as a gladiator, was visible where his cloak had slipped. "Senator Maximus," Marcus said, his voice rough from years of shouting over the roar of crowds. "I see prosperity continues to favor you. How is your wife? And your son Lucius? He must be, 16 now?" The senator's smile faltered slightly. His son Lucius had been born with a withered arm, something the senator went to great lengths to hide, sending the boy away to a distant villa whenever important guests visited. It was Rome's worst-kept secret, whispered about in bathhouses and wine shops. "My family as well," Maximus replied stiffly, "though I doubt they'd find much comfort in a villa where rats outnumber the tiles on the roof." The gathered patricians laughed, a sound like bronze coins rattling in a purse. "Perhaps," Marcus said, a strange smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "But I've learned that the most precious things in Rome are often hidden in the places nobody wants to look." "Precious?" laughed Gaius Aurelius, a merchant who'd grown fat on grain speculation. "The only thing precious about that ruin is the comedy it provides. 40,000 sesterces for a tomb with windows. Even the Christians in their catacombs have better accommodations." 40,000 sesterces, Marcus repeated thoughtfully. "Yes, that was the price. Every coin I had left from 15 years of bleeding for Rome's entertainment. Tell me, Gaius, what did you pay for your villa on the Palatine?" 2 million, 3.5 million, Gaius said proudly, his chins wobbling, "with marble from Carrara and tapestries from Damascus." "And yet," Marcus said, beginning to walk away, "I wonder which of us sleeps better at night." As he left the Forum behind, Marcus could hear their laughter following him like a pack of wild dogs. Let them laugh, he thought. They had no idea what he'd discovered in that ruined villa. No idea what had been hidden there for decades, waiting for someone with eyes to see beyond the crumbling facade. The journey to the villa took him along the Via Appia, past the grand tombs of Rome's elite, and through olive groves that whispered in the evening breeze. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, the villa came into view. It was, admittedly, a disaster. The main building listed to one side like a drunk senator after a feast. Half the roof tiles had slid off, creating impromptu skylights that let in rain, birds, and occasionally confused bats. The once grand entrance was choked with vines, and the fountain in the courtyard had long since cracked, its basin now home to a family of surprisingly ambitious frogs. But Marcus smiled as he approached, because he could hear them, the voices that had made every denarius worth it, every mockery bearable. Marcus is back. Marcus is back. They came running from various hiding spots around the villa. Children of all ages, from barely walking to nearly grown, dirty faces, patched tunics, bright eyes full of joy. 23 of them in total, though he suspected more were hiding in the ruins of the servant quarters. "Did you bring bread?" asked little Liphia, no more than 6, her hair a tangle of golden curls. She'd been the first one he'd found, abandoned in a temple with a note that simply said, "Cannot feed another mouth." "Better," Marcus said, pulling out a cloth bundle. "Honey cakes from the baker near the Circus Maximus." The children swarmed him with delight, but he noticed one standing apart. A new face, a boy of perhaps 14, with intelligent eyes and the bearing of someone who'd known better days. Unlike the others, his tunic, though dirty, was of fine wool. "Who's this?" Marcus asked Cassia, the oldest of his charges at 17. She'd been with him since the beginning, when he'd found her being sold to a brothel keeper 2 years ago. "He won't say his name," Cassia replied, her dark eyes concerned. "We found him by the broken aqueduct this morning, beaten and at for dead. He had this." She handed Marcus a small wooden tablet, the kind used for writing exercises in wealthy households. On it, in educated script, were the words, "The truth about Quintus Maximus." Marcus felt his blood chill. He looked at the boy more carefully, noting the distinctive sharp nose, the particular set of the jaw. "By the gods, it couldn't be. You're Lucius," he said quietly. "Senator Maximus's son." The boy nodded, tears starting to stream down his face. He tried to have me killed, said I was an embarrassment. That with me gone, he could claim I died of fever and remarry, have a proper heir. The slaves he sent to do it, they couldn't. They beat me to make it look good, then left me here to die or disappear. Marcus knelt before the boy, his scarred hands gentle on the thin shoulders. "You're safe now. This villa might not look like much, but these walls protect something more valuable than all the gold in Rome's treasury." "What?" Lucius asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Family," Marcus said. "The kind you choose, not the kind you're born to." As night fell over the ruined villa, Marcus stood in the courtyard watching the children prepare for sleep in the various habitable rooms they'd claimed. 24 now, with Lucius, 24 souls that Rome had thrown away like broken pottery. But that wasn't the real secret. The real secret was hidden beneath the villa's crumbling foundations, in chambers that hadn't been opened in 50 years. Chambers that contained not just gold, though there was plenty of that, but something far more dangerous to Rome's elite: documents. Proof of crimes, corruption, and conspiracies that reached to the highest levels of power. The previous owner, Crassus, hadn't died mad as everyone believed. He died trying to protect evidence that could bring down half the Senate. Evidence that Marcus had stumbled upon while exploring the villa's ruins with the children. Evidence worth far more than 99 million denarii if used correctly. But Marcus had no intention of using it for blackmail or personal gain. No, he had a different plan, one that would ensure these children, and hundreds more like them, would have a future in a Rome that had forgotten its most vulnerable citizens. Standing there in the moonlight, surrounded by sleeping Liban, in a villa that threatened to collapse at any moment, Marcus allowed himself a rare moment of contentment. Let the senators laugh. Let them mock the gladiator who'd spent his fortune on ruins. They had no idea that their laughter had already sealed their fate. The revolution wouldn't come with swords or fire, it would come with truth, carefully deployed, and the laughter of children rising from the ruins of Rome's forgotten places. Tomorrow he would begin to put his plan in motion. But tonight he simply stood guard over his charges, the old gladiator watching over his greatest victory, not won in sand and blood, but in small acts of kindness that would ripple out like stones thrown in still water. In the distance a nightingale began to sing, its melody threading through the broken walls and crumbling arches. Marcus smiled. Even ruins could shelter beautiful things, especially ruins, because it was only when everything else was stripped away that you could see what truly mattered. The children slept peacefully, unaware that they were sleeping above enough secrets to reshape the empire. And Marcus stood watch, as he always had, a guardian not of Rome's glory, but of its forgotten future. The morning sun struggled through the gaps in the villa's roof, casting geometric patterns across the floor where Marcus sat teaching the younger children their letters. He used charcoal on flat stones. Parchment was a luxury they couldn't afford, not when every sesti went to food and basic repairs. "Remember," he said, guiding little Livia's hand as she struggled with the letter A, "knowledge is the only weapon they can never take from you. Even when I was in chains fighting for my life, the words I'd learned as a child stayed with me." "Were you scared?" asked Titus, a boy of 8 with a gap-toothed smile. "In the arena, every time," Marcus admitted. "Fear keeps you alive. But you know what scared me more than any lion or gladiator?" The children leaned in, eyes wide. "The thought that I might die without ever doing something that truly mattered." "But you were famous," protested Cassia, from where she was mending tunics. "People loved you." "They loved the spectacle," Marcus corrected gently. "They loved watching me bleed. There's a difference between being celebrated and being valued. Children, remember that." A shadow fell across the doorway. Lucius stood there, having been with them only 3 days, but already looking healthier despite the bruises that still painted his face in shades of purple and yellow. May I help with the lessons?" he asked hesitantly. Marcus studied him. The boy had been educated by the finest tutors in Rome. That much was clear from his bearing and speech. "Can you teach mathematics?" Lucius nodded eagerly. "Geometry, arithmetic, even some engineering principles. My father—" He stopped, pain flashing across his features. "He wanted me to be useful despite my arm." Marcus noticed how the other children looked at Lucius's withered left arm with curiosity, but not cruelty. They'd all been broken in some way. Imperfection was the norm here, not the exception. "Then teach," Marcus said simply. "Cassia, take the older ones to Lucius for numbers. I need to check the eastern wall. It sounded ready to collapse last night." But instead of heading to the eastern wall, Marcus made his way to a section of the villa that appeared completely ruined. Massive stones had fallen from the upper floor, creating what looked like an impassable barrier. Yet Marcus knew better. Squeezing through a gap, barely visible behind a thick curtain of vines, he descended stone steps that led into darkness. He lit a torch from the supply he kept hidden at the base of the stairs. The flames revealed a corridor that stretched into the earth, its walls bearing faded frescoes of battles and triumphs from Rome's distant past. This was the true villa, the one built 2 centuries ago by a general who'd served under Scipio Africanus. Everything above was merely a facade, a distraction. Marcus walked for several minutes through the winding passages until he reached a heavy door marked with the seal of Mars. Using a key he'd found hidden in a statue's base, he entered the chamber that had changed everything. The room was vast, lined with shelves that held not just gold and silver, though there were several dozen chests of both, but thousands upon thousands of wax tablets, papyrus scrolls and parchments. Crassus, the villa's previous owner, hadn't been just any Roman noble. He'd been the emperor's personal investigator, tasked with gathering information on every senator, merchant and general who might pose a threat to imperial power. But Crassus had been too good at his job. He'd uncovered conspiracies within conspiracies, including evidence that several senators were planning to assassinate the emperor himself. When he'd tried to warn Nero, he'd been poisoned by the very people he was investigating. In his dying days, he'd sealed this chamber, raving about shadows in the walls to keep people away. Marcus picked up a particular scroll he'd been studying. It detailed Senator Maximus's dealings with pirates, how he'd been selling Roman citizens into slavery and splitting the profits with corsairs from Cilicia. The documentation was meticulous: dates, names, amounts, even signed contracts. This alone would be enough to see Maximus crucified. But that wasn't what made Marcus's hands tremble as he read. It was another document, one that revealed Maximus had been selling children, specifically unwanted noble children born with defects or illegitimate ones that might complicate inheritances. The senator had built a network that made these children disappear for a fee. His own son would have been next. Marcus carefully replaced the scroll and selected several others. If he was going to protect the children in his care, he needed leverage. But he had to be careful. Moving too quickly would only get him killed and leave the children defenseless. A sound from above made him freeze, footsteps too heavy to be any of the children. Multiple sets, military rhythm. Marcus quickly extinguished his torch and made his way back through the passages in darkness, guided by memory and the hand he kept on the wall. As he emerged into daylight, he saw them, a century of Praetorian guards surrounding the villa, their purple cloaks and polished armor gleaming in the morning sun. At their head stood Tribune Gaius Corvus, a man Marcus knew by reputation, incorruptible, loyal to Rome rather than any individual, and utterly ruthless when necessary. "Marcus Aurelius Calvus," the tribune called out, his voice carrying the authority of imperial decree. "By order of the Senate, this property is to be searched for fugitives and contraband." The children had gathered in the courtyard, terrified. Cassia held Livia protectively, while the older boys stood in front of the younger ones, as Marcus had taught them, always protect those weaker than yourself. "Tribune Corvus," Marcus said calmly, walking forward with his characteristic limp. "I wasn't aware that housing orphans had become a crime in Rome." "We've received information that you're harboring a kidnapped noble child," Corvus replied, his dark eyes scanning the assembled children until they found Lucius. "The son of Senator Maximus has been missing for 3 days. "Kidnapped?" Lucius stepped forward, his voice cracking with emotion. "I wasn't kidnapped. My father tried to have me murdered." Corvus raised an eyebrow. "That's a serious accusation, boy." "It's the truth." Lucius pulled up his tunic, showing the massive bruises across his ribs. "His men did this. They were supposed to kill me but couldn't go through with it. They left me to die by the aqueduct." Lies spread by a gladiator who's poisoned the boy's mind, came a familiar voice. Senator Maximus emerged from behind the guards, his face a mask of paternal concern. "My poor son has always been troubled, prone to fantasies. I've been sick with worry." "Don't let him take me," Lucius begged, grabbing Marcus's arm. "Please, he'll kill me." Marcus felt the moment balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong word, and they'd all be killed or enslaved. But he had one card to play, one desperate gambit. "Tribune Corvus," he said loudly, ensuring all the guards could hear. "I invoke the right of testimonium gladiatorium." A murmur ran through the guards. It was an ancient law, rarely used. A gladiator, who had won his freedom, could demand a trial by testimony before taking of property or persons from his household. Corvus frowned. "That law hasn't been invoked in 50 years. But it still stands," Marcus said, "unless the Senate has formally repealed it." The tribune was silent. They both knew it hadn't been repealed, it had simply been forgotten. "Furthermore," Marcus continued, "I demand that the testimony include evidence. I have documents that prove Senator Maximus has been selling Roman citizens to pirates." The color drained from Maximus's face. "You're lying. This is slander." "Then you won't mind a formal investigation?" Marcus asked innocently. "Tribune, you're known as a man who serves Rome, not individuals." Would Rome not benefit from knowing if one of its senators is trafficking its citizens? Calvus studied Marcus for a long moment. The gladiator could see the calculations behind those intelligent eyes, the political ramifications, the potential for uncovering real corruption, the danger of crossing powerful senators. "You have 3 days, Calvus finally said. 3 days to present your evidence at the forum. If you fail to appear or your evidence proves false, you and all these children will be sold into slavery. The boy comes with us for his protection." "No." Lucius clung tighter to Marcus. "Actually, Tribune," Marcus said, "under the law of testimonium gladiatorium, all persons in my household remain until the trial concludes. That includes the boy." Maximus stepped forward, rage distorting his features. "You dare?" "I dare because I must," Marcus interrupted. "Tribune, you have a reputation for following the law precisely. What does the law say?" Calvus's lips twitched in what might have been approval. "The law says the household remains intact pending trial." He turned to Maximus. "Your son stays, Senator, but know this, Gladiator. If you run, we will hunt you down. All of you." "We won't run," Marcus said firmly. "Rome is our home, for better or worse." As the guards withdrew, Maximus lingered, moving close enough to Marcus that only he could hear. "You've signed your death warrant, slave," he hissed. "Whatever fake documents you've created won't save you. I have friends you can't imagine, influence you can't comprehend. And I," Marcus replied quietly, "have truths you've forgotten were written down. Enjoy your next 3 days, Senator. They may be your last as a free man." After the Romans left, the children swarmed Marcus with questions and fears. He calmed them as best he could, but his mind was racing. 3 days to build an airtight case. 3 days to protect 24 children from one of Rome's most powerful men. That evening, as the children ate their simple meal of barley porridge and preserved fish, Marcus pulled Cassia and Lucius aside. "I need your help," he said. "Cassia, you know the city's underbelly better than anyone. I need you to find the slaves who were ordered to kill Lucius. They're witnesses. Lucius, I need you to write down everything about your father's dealings that you can remember. Every visitor, every hushed conversation, every strange absence." "What will you do?" Cassia asked. "I'm going to visit some old friends," Marcus said. "Other gladiators who won their freedom. Men who remember what it means to fight for something greater than entertainment." "This is dangerous," Lucius said, his voice shaking. "My father has had men killed for less than this." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "But look around you." He gestured to the children preparing for bed in their ruined villa. "Every one of these children is here because Rome failed them. Because men like your father decided they were worthless. If we don't stand now, who will stand for them?" That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He sat in the courtyard planning and preparing. The documents he had were damning, but presenting them would expose the secret chamber. Once that happened, powerful people would stop at nothing to seize or destroy what it contained. But perhaps that was inevitable. Perhaps some secrets were too heavy for one man to bear. As dawn approached, he made a decision that would change everything. He wouldn't just present evidence against Maximus. He would reveal enough to shake Rome's entire corrupt foundation. It would either save the children or destroy them all. But first, he had one more secret to uncover. The real reason Crassus had been killed, and why someone had gone to such lengths to make the villa appear cursed and worthless. The answer, he suspected, lay not in the documents below, but in something everyone had overlooked. Something hidden in plain sight among the ruins above. The Subura district of Rome came alive after dark, its narrow streets filling with shadows that had names and purposes best left unexamined. Marcus pulled his hood lower as he navigated the familiar alleys, his destination a tavern called the Broken Chain, a gathering place for freed gladiators who couldn't quite let go of the brotherhood forged in blood and sand. The smell hit him first. Cheap wine, sweat, and that particular mixture of leather and oil that clung to fighting men. Inside, scarred faces turned toward him. Recognition dawning slowly. By Mars's spear, breathed a giant Nubian named Africanus, rising from his bench. Marcus Calvus walks among us again. "Need your help, brothers," Marcus said without preamble. Time was precious, and he had learned long ago that former gladiators appreciated directness. "The great Calvus needs help." This from Tiberius, a Thracian who'd won his freedom the same year as Marcus. His tone was mocking, but his eyes showed concern. "We heard you bought ruins and filled them with street rats." "I filled them with children," Marcus corrected. "Roman children. Abandoned, sold, or left to die because they were inconvenient. And now Senator Maximus wants them gone. Wants his own son dead because the boy knows too much." The tavern fell silent. Every man there had been property once, had known what it meant to be considered less than human. "What do you need?" Africanus asked simply. "Witnesses protected, documents verified, and—" Marcus paused, knowing what he was about to ask could get them all killed. "I need men willing to testify about what they've seen in noble houses. The children who disappear, the trade in Roman blood." "You're talking about taking on the Senate," Tiberius said flatly. "That's not a fight, it's suicide." "Is it?" Marcus pulled out a small scroll, one he'd carefully selected. "This details how Senator Gaius Aurelius has been fixing gladiator matches, drugging fighters to ensure certain outcomes." "How much did you lose, Tiberius, when you bet your savings on Scorpius last year?" Tiberius's face darkened. "Everything. My wife left me, took our daughter back to Thrace. It wasn't your fault. Scorpius was drugged. Aurelius made 40,000 denarii on that fight alone." The rage that rippled through the tavern was palpable. These men had thought their defeats were fair, their losses honorable. To learn they'd been cheated even in the arena, it was almost too much to bear. "How do you know this?" Africanus demanded. "Because I have Caesar's investigators' records. All of them. Years of evidence hidden beneath my ruined villa." Marcus let that sink in. 99 million denarii worth of secrets, if sold to the right people. "But I'm not selling. I'm using them to protect those who can't protect themselves." "You magnificent fool!" Tiberius laughed bitterly. "You're going to burn Rome down around their ears." "No," Marcus said. "I'm going to make Rome remember what it claims to be, a republic of laws, not men. Will you help me?" One by one, scarred hands reached out to clasp his. The brotherhood of the arena ran deeper than fear. Meanwhile, Cassia moved through Rome's slave markets like a ghost. At 17, she'd learned to be invisible when needed, to listen without seeming to hear. The two slaves who'd been ordered to kill Lucius, she found them being sold by a dealer known for not asking questions. "Please," one of them whispered when she approached their cage. "We couldn't do it, couldn't kill a child. But if the senator finds out we're alive—" "Come with me," Cassia said, using the coins Marcus had given her. "Testify to what you know, and you'll have your freedom legally. My master keeps his word." The slaves' brothers, named Felix and Quintus, looked at each other with a mixture of hope and terror. "The senator will kill us all," Felix said. "He's going to try anyway," Cassia replied. "At least this way we fight back." Back at the villa, Lucius sat writing feverishly, his withered arm aching from the effort. But he didn't stop. Every memory, every overheard conversation, every piece of evidence he could recall went onto the wax tablets. "My father hosted gatherings," he wrote. "Every month, in the cellar, men would bring children, some Roman, some foreign. Gold changed hands. The children were never seen again. I once asked about it, and he beat me so badly I couldn't leave my room for a week. Said I should be grateful I was too damaged to be worth selling." Tears dropped onto the tablet, smearing some of the words, but he kept writing. All around him, the younger children slept peacefully, unaware of the storm gathering around them. Little Livia woke from a nightmare, crying softly. Lucius set down his stylus and went to her, his good arm pulling her close. "It's all right," he whispered. "Marcus won't let anything happen to you." "What about you?" she asked, with the devastating honesty of childhood. "Your papa is mean. Will he take you away? No, Lucius said firmly. This is my family now. You all. It was then that Marcus returned, bringing with him an unexpected visitor, Tribune Calvus, alone and without his purple cloak. Tribune? Lucius gasped, immediately fearful. Peace, boy Calvus. His sharp eyes took in the sleeping children, the patched roof, the general air of dignified poverty. I'm here unofficially. Marcus and I need to speak. They went to a corner of the courtyard, where their voices wouldn't wake the children. You're playing a dangerous game, Gladiator, Calvus said quietly. Maximus has already begun spreading gold around, ensuring the judges will be sympathetic to him. Then why are you here? Marcus asked. Because I've suspected Maximus of treason for years, but could never prove it, and because Calvus paused, wrestling with something. Because my own daughter disappeared 5 years ago. She was born with a clubfoot, an embarrassment to my late wife's family. They said she died of fever, but no body was ever found. I've wondered, what was her name? Julia. She would be 12 now. Red hair, like her mother. A birthmark shaped like a crescent moon on her shoulder. Marcus's heart raced. Wait here. He returned minutes later, with a girl who'd been sleeping in Cassia's room. Red hair, intelligent green eyes, and when Marcus gently moved her tunic's shoulder, a crescent birthmark. Papa? The girl whispered, recognition dawning slowly. Papa, they said you didn't want me anymore, that you sent me away because of my foot. Calvus fell to his knees, gathering his daughter into his arms, his rigid military composure crumbling entirely. Never, never, my jewel. I searched everywhere. They told me you were dead. The reunion was tearful, with Calvus alternating between holding his daughter and demanding to know everything about how she'd come to be here. She'd been sold 3 times, finally ending up being discarded at a temple where Marcus had found her 6 months ago. I have 23 other children here with similar stories, Marcus said once Calvus had composed himself. Your daughter was lucky. She survived. Many don't. The documents you mentioned, Calvus said, his voice now steel. They're real, more real than you can imagine. But if I reveal them, I need protection for all these children. Not just during the trial, but after. Can you guarantee that? I can do better than that, Calvus said. The Emperor is returning from his campaign in Germania tomorrow, earlier than expected. He'll want to attend any trial involving a senator. If your evidence is what you claim, present it directly to him. He has no love for Maximus. The man voted against his last 3 proposals. And if the Emperor decides the evidence is too dangerous, if he wants it buried along with us. Calvus looked at his daughter, who had fallen asleep in his arms. Then I'll stand with you. A father's duty comes before a soldier's. They spent the rest of the night planning. The trial would be public, in the forum as tradition demanded. But the real battle would be controlling the narrative, ensuring the people of Rome understood what was at stake. We need the mob on our side, Marcus said. The Senate fears nothing more than the rage of the common people. Then give them something to rage about, Calvus suggested. These children, let Rome see them, let them tell their stories. Even the hardest heart can be moved by a child's tears. As dawn broke on the 2nd day, Marcus stood on the villa's crumbling wall, looking out over Rome. The city was waking up, unaware that its foundations were about to be shaken. Cassia approached with Felix and Quintus, the 2 slaves who'd refused to kill Lucius. They were terrified, but determined. We'll testify, Felix said. The senator ordered us to make it look like brigands, said the boy was cursed. That his deformity would bring shame to the family name. Offered us freedom if we did it, death if we refused. You'll have your freedom anyway, Marcus promised. Legal and binding before the Emperor himself, if Calvus is right. Marcus, Cassia said urgently. There's something else. I was talking to some of the street children in the Suburra. They say there's been movement in the old quarries outside the city. Children being gathered, lots of them. Word is they're to be shipped out tomorrow night, sold to mines in Hispania, where they won't last a year. Marcus felt his blood run cold. How many? Maybe 50. Maybe more. This was it. Maximus was accelerating his operation, trying to eliminate evidence before the trial, but it also presented an opportunity. Gather Africanus and the others, Marcus told Cassius. Tonight, we're going to those quarries. If we can catch them in the act, with witnesses, it would be undeniable. Calvus finished. He'd been listening from the doorway. I'll have my most trusted men nearby. Not officially, you understand, but close enough. That evening, as they prepared for what could be a deadly confrontation, Marcus found Lucius teaching the younger children geometry, using sticks to draw in the dirt. The boy's withered arm didn't slow him down. He'd adapted, found ways to work around it. You'd make a good teacher, Marcus told him. If we survive this, Lucius said with a maturity beyond his years, my father won't stop. Even if we win the trial, he'll find a way to destroy us. Perhaps, Marcus agreed, but I've learned something in my years fighting for other people's entertainment. The crowd loves an underdog, but they love justice more. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough. Is that what we are? Justice? Marcus looked at the children around them, thrown away by Rome, surviving in ruins, yet still learning, still hoping, still laughing, despite everything. No, he said, we're something more powerful than justice. We're proof that Rome's greatest treasure isn't gold or power, or perfect bloodlines. It's the capacity for ordinary people to do extraordinary things when they stand together. As night fell, they prepared for the raid on the quarries. 20 former gladiators, 2 frightened slaves ready to testify, 1 tribune operating in the shadows, and a gladiator who'd spent his fortune on a ruined villa. Against them stood the power and wealth of Rome's elite. It should have been no contest, but Marcus had learned long ago that the most important battles were the ones you weren't supposed to win. The abandoned quarries outside Rome looked like wounds in the earth, great gouges where marble had been torn from the ground to build monuments to vanity. Now, in the moonless night, they served a darker purpose. Marcus and his brothers in arms moved silently through the shadows, years of training making them deadly even without armor or proper weapons. From their vantage point behind a cluster of broken stone blocks, they could see everything. 53 children, ages ranging from 4 to 14, huddled together in chains. Around them, a dozen guards bearing the unofficial marks of several senatorial houses. And overseeing it all, wrapped in a dark cloak, but unmistakable in his bearing, Senator Maximus himself. Foolish, Africanus whispered. Why would he come personally? Desperation, Marcus replied. He's cleaning up loose ends before the trial. They watched as a line of covered wagons approached, each bearing the mark of a different merchant house. The buyers had arrived, 8 against 12, plus whoever's in those wagons. Tiberius calculated. I've had worse odds in the arena. Wait, Marcus said, but then he heard it. A small voice crying out in fear. One of the children, a little girl no older than Livia, had tried to run. A guard caught her, raising his hand to strike. Marcus moved before he could think. The years fell away and he was the champion again, moving with lethal grace despite his damaged leg. The guard never saw him coming. Marcus's fist connected with the man's jaw, dropping him instantly. Now, Marcus roared, and the night erupted in violence. Former gladiators knew how to make an entrance. They came from all sides, using the element of surprise to maximum effect. Africanus lifted a guard and threw him into the quarry pit. Tiberius fought with 2 stolen swords, a whirlwind of Thracian fury. The other brothers, each bringing their own style of controlled violence to bear. But Marcus had only one target, Maximus. The senator saw him coming and drew a hidden gladius. You should have taken my gold and disappeared, gladiator. I'm done running from men like you, Marcus replied, circling carefully. His leg screamed in protest, but he ignored it. Maximus lunged, showing surprising skill for a politician. But he'd learned from tutors in comfortable courtyards. Marcus had learned in the arena, where mistakes meant death. Marcus deflected the blade with his arm guard, stepped inside Maximus's reach, and drove his knee into the senator's stomach. As Maximus doubled over, Marcus stripped the sword from his hand. "Yield," Marcus commanded, the blade at Maximus's throat. "You think you've won?" Maximus gasped. "Kill me, and you'll be crucified by dawn." "I'm not going to kill you," Marcus said. "That would be merciful." The sound of hoofbeats announced Calvus's arrival with his guards. Perfect timing. As always, the tribune surveyed the scene: scattered slave traders, children in chains, and a senator on his knees. "Interesting evening for a walk, Senator Maximus," Calvus said dryly. "I don't suppose you have permits for transporting these children." "This is entrapment," Maximus snarled. "You set this up." "Actually," said a new voice, "we've been watching you for weeks." Everyone turned to see a figure in imperial purple emerging from one of the wagons. Not a slave trader at all, but the Emperor Marcus Aurelius himself, returned early from Germania and informed by Calvus of the situation. "Your Excellency," Maximus stammered, trying to bow despite Marcus's sword at his throat. "I received disturbing intelligence about children disappearing from Rome," the Emperor said, his philosopher's eyes taking in every detail. "I wanted to see for myself if my senators were involved. Imagine my disappointment, Quintus. These are slaves, legitimate property." "Really?" The Emperor walked among the children, his face growing stonier with each step. "This one wears a citizen's ring on a chain around his neck. This girl has the bearing of patrician blood. And this boy," he stopped, staring at a child with distinctive features. "This is young Aurelius, son of the merchant Castor. His father petitioned me personally about his disappearance. Castor believed his rivals had the boy killed. Lies and confusion, Divine One. The Gladiator has poisoned your mind." Silence. The Emperor's voice carried absolute authority. "Tribune Calvus, free these children immediately. Have your men gather evidence. Everything here is to be documented." He turned to Marcus. "You're the gladiator with the ruined villa, the one they're all laughing about." "I am, Divine Augustus. Yet you're here, risking your life for children not your own. Why?" Marcus lowered his sword, allowing Maximus to collapse fully. "Because someone has to, Excellency. Rome speaks of honor and virtue, but it's built on the suffering of the innocent. These children are Rome's true future, not the corrupted sons of corrupted fathers." "Careful, Gladiator. That sounds like sedition." "Then let me be clearer," Marcus said, meeting the Emperor's eyes directly, a boldness that made everyone hold their breath. "I have documents proving that half your Senate is involved in everything from treason to murder. 99 million denarii worth of evidence, collected by your own investigator Crassus before he was murdered. I'll present it all at tomorrow's trial, unless you guarantee protection and support for every abandoned child in Rome. Not just these, but all of them. Create a fund, establish houses of care, make it law that no Roman child can be sold or abandoned. Give them what Rome promised, a chance." The Emperor studied him for a long moment. "You would blackmail an emperor?" "I would appeal to Marcus Aurelius the philosopher, who wrote that what is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." A ghost of a smile crossed the Emperor's face. "You've read my meditation. Your words kept me sane in the arena, when I wondered what I was fighting for. And now I know. I fight for them." Marcus gestured to the children being freed from their chains, crying with relief and confusion. The Emperor was quiet for a moment, then made a decision that would echo through history. "Tomorrow's trial will proceed, but not in the Forum, in the Colosseum itself, where all of Rome can witness. You will present your evidence, Gladiator. And if it is as you say, then yes, Rome will remember its duty to its children." As dawn broke, they returned to the villa with 53 more children. The place was bursting at the seams, children sleeping everywhere, in the gardens, under the remaining roof sections, even in the old stable. Cassia worked tirelessly, organizing food distribution with military precision. "We need more bread," she told Marcus, "and medicine. Some of these new ones are sick." "After tomorrow," Marcus promised, After tomorrow, everything changes. Lucius found him standing in the courtyard, staring at nothing. You're frightened, terrified, Marcus admitted. In the arena, I only risked my own life. Tomorrow, I risk all of yours. No, Lucius said firmly. Tomorrow, you give us a chance to fight for ourselves. You've taught us that, to stand, to speak, to matter. My father tried to kill me because I was imperfect. You've shown us that our imperfections are what make us strong. That evening, as they prepared for the trial, Marcus descended once more into the secret chambers. But this time, he wasn't alone. Calvus came with him, needing to see the evidence himself. The tribune's expression grew more shocked with each document he read. This is beyond treason. This is the systematic destruction of Rome from within. Your daughter's disappearance is documented here, Marcus said gently, showing him a tablet. Your wife's family received 30,000 denarii for her. She was sold to a household in Athens, but the trail goes cold there. Calvus's hands shook. At least she might still be alive. We'll find her, Marcus promised. When this is over, we'll find all of them we can. They selected the most damning documents, enough to ensure convictions, but not so much as to cause complete chaos. Rome needed reform, not revolution. That night, none of them slept. The children sensed the importance of what was coming. The older ones helped prepare the younger ones, washing faces, mending clothes, making them as presentable as possible. Remember, Marcus told them, gathering all 77 children, his original 23 Lucius, and the 53 from the quarries. You are not victims tomorrow. You are witnesses. You speak not just for yourselves, but for every child who couldn't be saved. Be brave, be truthful, and know that whatever happens, you are loved. Little Livia raised her hand. Will the bad men go away? Some of them, Marcus said honestly, but more importantly, good people will finally see what's been happening. And good people, when they see injustice, can change the world. As the first light of dawn touched the villa's broken walls, they prepared to march to the Colosseum. 77 children, led by a broken gladiator who'd spent everything on ruin. The crowds gathering in the streets laughed at first, pointing at the ragged procession. But the laughter died as they saw the children's faces, determined, dignified, unbroken despite everything. By the time they reached the Colosseum, thousands had joined the march, common people who recognized their own struggles in these abandoned children. The arena where Marcus had once fought for sport would now host a different kind of battle, one for the soul of Rome itself. Inside, 50,000 citizens had gathered, summoned by imperial decree. The senators sat in their traditional seats, many looking nervous. Maximus was there, in chains but still defiant. The emperor presided from the imperial box, his expression unreadable. Citizens of Rome, the emperor announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the amphitheater. Today, you will witness not blood sport, but blood truth. Marcus Aurelius Calvus, step forward. Marcus walked onto the sand where he'd once faced death 100 times, but now, instead of a sword, he carried scrolls and tablets. Instead of facing gladiators, he faced the judgment of Rome. Screed, gladiator, the emperor commanded. Show us what is worth more than 99 million denarii. Marcus looked up at the crowds, then back at the children arranged in the first rows. Their faces turned to him with absolute trust. Romans, he began, his voice carrying the strength of conviction. I stand before you not as a gladiator, but as a father to the fatherless, not as an entertainer, but as a witness to Rome's greatest shame. What I reveal today will shake your faith in those who lead you. But more importantly, it will show you the true wealth of Rome, not in gold or conquest, but in these children you've thrown away. He held up the first document. Let me tell you about a trade that has flourished in your markets, not in silk or spice, but in Roman blood, Roman children, Roman future. The Colosseum held its breath as Marcus unrolled the first scroll. 50,000 Romans leaned forward, The usual bloodthirsty excitement replaced by something else, curiosity mixed with dread. This document, Marcus announced, his voice carrying to the highest seats, signed and sealed by Senator Maximus himself, authorizes the sale of 23 Roman children to Cilician pirates. The price, 2,000 denarii per child. Among them Marcus Lucinius, age 7, son of a legionnaire, who died in Germania. The boy's crime, being orphaned. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Soldiers in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Any of their children could have been Marcus Lucinius. Lies, Maximus shouted from his chains. Forgeries. Then you won't mind if we hear from the witnesses. Marcus gestured to Felix and Quintus, the two slaves who stood trembling but determined. These men were ordered to murder the senator's own son. Tell Rome what you were told. Felix stepped forward, his voice shaking but clear. The senator said the boy was cursed, that his withered arm was a sign of the gods' displeasure. He offered us freedom if we killed him, death if we refused. We couldn't do it. We're fathers ourselves, in our hearts if not in law. And the boy? The emperor asked from his box. Where is he now? Lucius stood from among the children, his withered arm visible to all. I'm here, divine Augustus. My father tried to have me killed because I'm imperfect. But Marcus taught me that Rome's strength isn't in perfect bodies, but in imperfect people choosing to do perfect good. The crowd's murmur grew louder. In Roman society, a father's power over his children was absolute, but attempted filicide still shocked. Marcus continued, each document building the case. Senator Gaius Aurelius, 40 children sold to work in Syrian mines. Senator Publius Dracus, 60 children sent brothels in Alexandria. Senator Titus Flavian. Enough. A senator rose from his seat. It was Cassius Dio, one of the most respected voices in the Senate. These are serious accusations, Gladiator, but where is your proof, beyond papers that could be forged? The proof, Marcus said, stands before you. He gestured, and one by one the children began to stand and speak their names and stories. I am Julia, daughter of Tribune Calvus. I was sold because of my clubfoot. Gasps echoed through the arena as Calvus, in full military regalia, walked down to embrace his daughter publicly. I am Quintus, son of the merchant Aurelius. I was taken because my father refused to pay protection money. I am Antonia. My mother was a Vestal virgin who broke her vows. I was meant to die, but was sold instead. On and on they went, each child a dagger to Rome's heart. The crowd's mood began to shift from shock to anger. These weren't foreign slaves, these were Roman children. Their children, the city's children. But Marcus wasn't done. He pulled out a special scroll, one he'd saved for this moment. This is the most damning of all. It's a letter from 5 senators to Rome's enemies in Parthia, offering to sell them information about our legion's movements in exchange for gold. The gold would be used to buy and train children as spies and assassins, loyal only to their senatorial masters. They called it the Future of Rome Project. The emperor stood, his face thunderous. Who signed this treason? Marcus read the names, each one landing like a hammer blow. 5 of the most powerful men in Rome, including Maximus. This is why Crassus was murdered. Marcus continued. He discovered this plot and was poisoned before he could reveal it. But he hid the evidence, hoping someone would find it. He scratched a message on the wall of the chamber where I found these documents. For Rome's children, the truth must survive. The crowd's anger was becoming palpable. Someone threw a rotten fruit at Maximus, then another. Soon the air was full of projectiles and curses. Order, the emperor commanded. We are not a mob. We are Romans. We will have justice through law. He turned to Marcus. You spoke of 99 million denarii. Surely these documents, damning as they are, aren't worth such a sum. No, Excellency, Marcus agreed. Their monetary value is far less, but their true value? He walked over to where the children sat. Each of these children, if sold into slavery, would bring perhaps 2,000 denarii. 77 children, that's barely 150,000. But ask any parent here, what is their child worth to them? What price would they put on their son's laughter, their daughter's dreams? He lifted little Livia onto his shoulders. This child can barely write her name, but she wants to be a teacher. Is that worth money? This boy, he pointed to another, survived on the streets for 2 years, feeding younger children before himself. What's the value of such nobility? Marcus's voice rose, filling the arena. I say each child is worth more than all the gold in Rome's treasury. I say their potential is beyond calculation. 99 million denarii? That's an insult to their true value. They are priceless. They are Rome's future, and we nearly threw them away. The crowd erupted, not in violence, but in something more powerful. Parents began calling out, offering to adopt the children. Merchants pledged funds for their care. Soldiers volunteered to stand guard over any house that sheltered them. But then Maximus played his final card. Fine words from a gladiator, he sneered. But ask him about his own past. Ask him about the child he killed in the arena 10 years ago. A boy of 14, barely old enough to hold a sword. Tell them about that hero. The crowd fell silent. Marcus closed his eyes, the memory washing over him like acid. He said quietly, but his voice still carried. I killed a boy, a Gaulish child taken in war, thrown into the arena for sport. I begged the crowd for mercy, but they demanded blood. The editor demanded blood, and I gave it to them. Tears ran down his scarred face. That boy's face haunts me every night. He looked exactly like my own son would have looked. The son who died of plague while I was fighting for your entertainment. He set Livia down gently and faced the crowd. That's why I spent everything on that ruined villa. That's why I gather these children. Every child I save is an apology to the boy I couldn't. Every life I protect is penance for the life I took. I am not a hero. I am a man trying to earn forgiveness from a ghost. The silence in the Colosseum was absolute. Then from high in the plebeian seats came the sound of clapping, one person, then another, then thousands. Not the bloodthirsty applause of the games, but something deeper, recognition of genuine humanity. The emperor raised his hand for silence. Marcus Aurelius Calvus, you have presented your evidence. Senate of Rome, you have heard the accusations, but I wonder, is punishment enough? Will crucifying these senators bring back the children who died? Will it heal the wounds in Rome's soul? He hid, addressing the entire arena. I propose something different. These senators' entire estates will be confiscated and used to create the fund for Rome's children. Every abandoned child will have shelter, food, education. Furthermore, any Roman who sells, abandons or harms a child will face the same punishment they intended for that child. And the senators, someone called out, will live, the emperor said, causing gasps of surprise. But they will live as their victims did. They will work in the very mines and brothels where they sent children. They will experience the fate they condemned others to. And Maximus, he looked at the senator with cold eyes. You will serve in the villa you mocked, caring for the children you tried to destroy, under the supervision of your son, the one you tried to murder. Maximus's face went white. You can't. I am emperor. I can. And I will. He turned back to Marcus. As for you, Gladiator, you are no longer Calvus, the bold. You are Marcus Aurelius Liberi, Marcus Aurelius of the children. The villa you purchased is now the first official orphans' haven of Rome, with imperial funding and protection. You are its permanent guardian. Marcus fell to his knees, overwhelmed, but the emperor wasn't finished. Furthermore, every gladiator who helped in the quarries last night is granted full citizenship and a pension. Tribune Corvus is promoted to prefect, with the specific duty of protecting Rome's children. And these children, he gestured to all 77. They are now my wards. Any who wish to study will have the finest tutors. Any who wish to learn trades will have apprenticeships. They are no longer abandoned. They are chosen. The crowd's roar shook the very foundations of the Colosseum. But in the midst of the celebration, Marcus noticed something. Lucius had walked over to his father. "I forgive you," the boy said quietly, but in the arena's acoustics, everyone heard. "Not because you deserve it, but because Marcus taught me that hatred is a chain that binds both prisoner and guard. I forgive you, Father, and I pray that in serving others, you might find the humanity you lost." Maximus broke down completely, the mighty senator reduced to sobbing ruins. His son's forgiveness had destroyed him more thoroughly than any punishment could have. The villa that had once threatened to collapse with every strong wind now stood transformed, not into marble perfection but into something better. The walls had been rebuilt by hundreds of Roman hands, volunteers who came after the trial to help create what Marcus had envisioned. Gardens bloomed where rubble had been. Dormitories stood where ruins had crumbled, and in the central courtyard, a fountain sang with clear water, donated by the Guild of Engineers, who said Rome's children deserved better than stagnant pools. Marcus stood in his favorite spot, the teaching pavilion, where afternoon sun filtered through newly planted olive trees. His hair, once merely thinning, had gone completely white in these 5 years, and his limp had worsened to the point where he needed a walking stick. But his eyes remained sharp as he watched Lucius, now 21 and one of Rome's most sought-after tutors, teaching mathematics to a group of young children. "The secret to understanding numbers," Lucius was saying, his withered arm no longer hidden, but used expressively in his teaching, "is to remember that they tell stories. This equation here, it's the story of how things balance, how the universe seeks harmony." "Marcus," he turned to see Cassia running toward him. At 22, she had become the villa's administrator, managing the needs of over 300 children who now called this place home. The emperor's funding had allowed them to expand, taking in every abandoned child they could find. "What is it?" Marcus asked, noting the concern in her eyes. "It's Livia. She's asking for you." Marcus's heart clenched. Little Livia, though not so little anymore at 11, had fallen ill weeks ago. The Greek physician had done everything possible, but the fever wouldn't break. They'd moved her to the quietest room in the villa, where sunlight could reach her bed and the breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the gardens. He found her propped up on pillows, her golden curls damp with sweat, but her eyes still bright with that intelligence that had always amazed him. Julia, Corvus's daughter, sat beside her, reading from a scroll of poetry. "Marcus," Livia whispered, reaching out her thin hand. He took it gently, sitting on the edge of her bed. "I'm here, little teacher. How are you feeling?" "I wanted to tell you something," she said, her voice barely audible. "The physician, he says I might go to the gods soon." "The physicians have been wrong before." "Please," she interrupted with a maturity that broke his heart. "Let me say this." Marcus nodded, his throat tight. "You saved me 6 years ago. I was dying in that temple, cold and alone. You gave me a family, a home, a chance to learn and dream. But more than that," she squeezed his hand with what little strength she had, "you gave me the chance to matter. Every child I've helped teach their letters, every smile I've brought to someone sad, that happened because you saw value in a dying little girl." Tears ran freely down Marcus's scarred face. "You've given me far more than I've given you, Livia. You've taught me that courage isn't about facing death in the arena. It's about facing life with hope, despite everything. Will you tell me a story?" she asked. "About the secret, the real secret of the villa." Marcus looked at Julia, who nodded and quietly left to give them privacy. "The real secret," Marcus said softly, "was never the gold or the documents. The real secret was love. You see, Crassus, the man who owned this villa before, he wasn't just investigating senators. He was trying to save his own grandson, a boy born blind, who'd been marked for death by his own family. Crassus hid the boy here, in the secret chambers, visiting him whenever he could. What happened to him? He died the night Crassus was poisoned. They found each other at least. But Crassus wrote something on the wall beside where they lay. He wrote, "Love is worth any price." I didn't understand it at first. 99 million denarii worth of secrets. I thought that's what mattered. But then I found you, and Cassia, and all the others, and I realized the secret wasn't the money. It was discovering that love multiplies when divided. The more children I brought here, the more love there was. Livia smiled weakly. We were your 99 million denarii. No, Marcus said, kissing her forehead. You were worth infinitely more. That night, as Marcus kept vigil by Livia's bedside, the entire villa gathered in the courtyard. Lucius had organized it, a ceremony of gratitude. One by one, children and young adults who'd passed through the villa stood to speak. I'm Antonius. I was going to be sold to the mines. Now I'm apprenticed to Rome's finest architect. I'm Claudia. I was left to die because I was born blind. Now I'm Rome's youngest poet, and the emperor himself requests my verses. I'm Gaius. My parents threw me out for being simple-minded. Now I tend the most beautiful garden in Rome, right here in this villa. On and on they went, 300 voices raised in testament to what love could accomplish. The sound carried to Livia's window, and she smiled, even in her fever. They're singing your song, Marcus told her. Our song, she corrected weakly. As dawn approached, Marcus felt her hand grow cold in his. Her breathing became shallow, labored. He wanted to call for the physician, to rage against the gods, to bargain with death as he'd done so many times in the arena, but he knew this was a fight he couldn't win. Marcus, she whispered, her eyes focusing one last time. Will you remember me? Every day, he promised. Every child who learns their letters here will know about the little girl who wanted to be a teacher. Every garden that blooms will carry your laughter. You will never be forgotten, my little teacher. Never. She smiled, whispered, Papa, and was gone. The cry that tore from Marcus's throat brought everyone running. They found him cradling Livia's small body. The old gladiator who'd faced death 100 times, finally broken by it. The funeral was attended by thousands. The emperor himself came, as did tribune, now prefect, Calvus, and hundreds of families who'd adopted children from the villa. Even Maximus was there, a shadow of his former self, after 5 years of serving the children he'd once sold. He wept openly, finally understanding the weight of what he'd done. Lucius gave the eulogy, his voice strong despite his tears. Livia represented everything this villa stands for. The possibility of transformation, the power of education, the strength found in weakness. She died as she lived, teaching us about love. As they laid her to rest in the villa's garden, something remarkable happened. Children began coming forward, placing items on her grave, not flowers, but books, scrolls, writing tablets, each one inscribed with the letters she'd taught them. That evening, Marcus sat alone in the courtyard, feeling every one of his 51 years. Cassia found him there. She left this for you, she said, handing him a wax tablet. In shaky letters, clearly written with great effort, were Livia's final words. Dear Marcus, my papa of choice. They laughed when you bought these ruins. They said you wasted your fortune, but you knew the secret. That love is the only fortune that grows when spent. Thank you for spending yours on me, your little teacher, always. Livia. Marcus held the tablet to his chest and wept, not the tears of despair, but of gratitude. Around him the villa hummed with life. Children studied, played, laughed. Young adults who'd grown up here returned to help the next generation. The cycle of love continued. Later that night, Lucius found Marcus in the hidden chamber beneath the villa. The gold was long gone, distributed to fund orphanages across the empire. The incriminating documents had served their purpose. All that remained was empty shelves and that inscription on the wall, "Love is worth any price." You're thinking of her, Lucius said. I'm thinking of all of them, Marcus replied. Every child we've saved, every child we've lost, the boy I killed in the arena, my own son, Livia. The weight of love is heavier than any sword. Do you regret it, spending everything on this place? Marcus turned to look at him. This young man who'd gone from rejected son to beloved teacher, from victim to protector. Regret? No, but I understand now what Crassus meant. 99 million denarii. It was never about the gold. It was about the value of a single human soul, multiplied by all the souls that could be saved. Each child we've helped, they've gone on to help others. The love spreads like ripples in water. The senators still mock you sometimes, Lucius said quietly. They call you the fool who traded fortune for orphans. Let them, Marcus said. They count their worth in gold. We count ours in lives transformed. A sound from above made them both look up. Children laughing, the sound echoing through the ancient stones. Listen to that, Marcus said. That's the sound of Rome's future. Not the clash of swords or the clink of coins, but children laughing in a place that was once ruins. As they climbed back to the surface, they found the courtyard full of people. Word had spread about Livia's death, and Romans from every walk of life had come to pay respects, not to a noble or a warrior, but to a little girl who'd embodied Rome's better nature. Senator Maximus approached, something he'd never done in 5 years of service. He looked haggard, but somehow more human than he'd ever appeared in his purple stripe. Gladiator, he said, then corrected himself. Marcus. I wanted to say, you don't need to say anything, Marcus replied. Yes, I do. Maximus's voice broke. That little girl, Livia, she forgave me. Last week when I was bringing water to the sick children, she called me over. She could barely speak, but she said, "You're not the same man who hurt Lucius. That man is dead. You're someone new now." How could a dying child forgive so easily what I can't forgive in myself? Because children understand what we adults forget, Marcus said. That people can change, that love is stronger than hate, that forgiveness is not weakness, but the ultimate strength. I've served here 5 years, Maximus. My sentence ends next month, but I want to stay, not as punishment, but as purpose. These children, they've taught me more about Rome's true values than all my years in the Senate. Marcus clasped his shoulder. Then stay. The children need all the protectors they can get. As the gathering grew, spontaneous testimonies began. Citizens stood to speak about how the villa's children had changed their perspectives. A baker who now donated bread daily, a senator who'd reformed his position on child welfare laws, a soldier who'd adopted 3 orphans after seeing the trial. The emperor arrived as the sun set, not in imperial regalia, but in a simple toga, as a fellow mourner. She was remarkable, he said to Marcus. I met her once, when she came to the palace with other children to recite poetry. She asked me, why do some people have so much when others have nothing? The emperor of Rome, had no answer for an 8-year-old girl. She had that effect, Marcus said. She made us all question what truly mattered. You know, the emperor continued, when you stood in the Colosseum 5 years ago, you said these children were worth 99 million denarii. You were wrong. Marcus looked at him in surprise. They're worth far more, the emperor clarified. They're priceless, and you knew it all along. That's why you gave everything for them. As night fell, torches were lit throughout the villa. The gathering became a celebration of Livia's life, and all the lives changed by this place. Music played, stories were shared, and through it all, the children Livia's true legacy continued learning, playing, living. Marcus stood in the garden where Livia was buried, surrounded by the family he'd built from Rome's discarded children. His body was breaking down, the years of combat and hardship finally claiming their due. He knew he didn't have many years left. Looking around at the lives he'd saved, the love he'd fostered, the future he'd secured, he felt something he'd never felt in all his victories in the arena. Complete. You did it, Marcus. He turned to see Africanus and Tiberius, his gladiator brothers, who now helped run orphanages across the city. Did what? Won the greatest victory, Africanus said, not against men or beasts, but against Rome's indifference. You made them care. We all did, Marcus corrected. Every person who took in a child, every coin donated, every law changed. We all did this together. As the evening progressed, a young boy, perhaps 6 years old and new to the villa, tugged on Marcus's tunic. "Sir, are you the gladiator who bought the broken house?" Marcus knelt down, his joints protesting. "I am. Why? Why did you buy something broken?" Marcus smiled, thinking of all the broken children who'd become whole here, of his own broken heart that had been healed by their love, of broken Rome slowly mending its treatment of its most vulnerable. "Because, young one, broken things can be the most beautiful. They just need someone to see their value. Like you, you're here because someone threw you away, right?" The boy nodded, tears in his eyes. "But look around," Marcus said. "You're surrounded by hundreds who were also thrown away, and now you're all precious. You're all loved. You're all family. That's the real secret of this place. We take broken pieces and build something stronger than what was whole." The boy smiled and ran off to play with the other children. Cassia approached, holding a ledger. "Marcus, we've received more donation pledges tonight than in the past year combined. We can expand to the old barracks, take in another 100 children." "Then we will," Marcus said. "We'll keep growing until every abandoned child in Rome has a home." "You've started something that will outlive us all," she said. "That's the point," Marcus replied, watching the children play in the torchlight. "We all die, but love is immortal. Every child we save carries that love forward. They'll save others, who'll save others, on and on, until the empire itself crumbles. But the love remains." As midnight approached, the crowd slowly dispersed. Marcus remained in the garden, keeping vigil at Livia's grave. One by one, the children joined him, not in sadness, but in solidarity. They sang the songs she'd taught them, recited the poems she'd loved, shared stories of her kindness. Finally, as dawn broke over Rome, painting the sky the color of hope, Marcus spoke to the assembled children, his children, Rome's children, the future's children. "Livia's body is gone, but her spirit lives in each of you. Every time you choose kindness over cruelty, every time you lift someone who's fallen, every time you see value in the discarded, that's Livia, living through your actions. Will you tell us the story again?" asked a young girl. "About when they laughed at you," Marcus smiled, gathering the children closer. "They laughed when a gladiator bought a ruined villa. They mocked when I spent my fortune on abandoned children. They said I was a fool trading gold for garbage. But you weren't," the children chorused, knowing the story by heart. "No," Marcus agreed, "because I knew a secret worth more than 99 million denarii, that love isn't diminished when shared, but multiplied. That the weakest among us can become the strongest. That from ruins can rise palaces of the heart." As the sun rose fully, bathing the villa in golden light, Marcus looked at each face around him. Some bore scars of abuse, others the marks of disease or deformity, but all glowed with something Rome's gold could never buy: the certainty of being loved. Lucius stood and addressed the gathering. 5 years ago, my father tried to kill me for being imperfect. Today I stand here teaching mathematics to Rome's future architects and engineers. That transformation happened because one man saw value where others saw shame. More stood to speak. I was left to die as an infant. Now I'm studying to be a physician. I was sold to pay my parents' debts. Now I'm apprenticed to a senator who advocates for children's rights. I was born blind and called cursed. Now I'm Rome's youngest musician. Each testimony added another layer to the tapestry of transformation. The villa that had once been ruins now stood as testament to resurrection, not of buildings but of human potential. As the children dispersed to their daily activities, lessons, chores, play, Marcus remained by Livia's grave. Maximus approached one final time. "I've spent 5 years trying to understand," the former senator said, "why you didn't use those documents to gain power, why you chose this instead." "Because power corrupts," Marcus replied simply. "But love transforms. You're proof of that, Maximus. The man who tried to murder his son now spends his days caring for abandoned children. That's the miracle, not that we can destroy our enemies, but that we can transform them into allies. I don't deserve forgiveness. None of us do, but we receive it anyway. That's what makes it precious. That afternoon, the emperor made an unexpected announcement from the forum. Inspired by the gladiator Marcus and the child Livia, Rome will establish a network of children's havens across the empire. No Roman child will go hungry, homeless, or unloved. This is now law, written in stone and sealed with imperial authority. The crowd erupted in celebration, but in the villa, Marcus felt a strange weakness overtake him. His heart, scarred by years of combat and stress, was finally failing. He collapsed in the garden, near Livia's grave. As the children gathered around him, tears streaming down their faces, Marcus smiled. "Don't weep," he whispered. "I'm going to see Livia and my son and all the children who went before. But you must continue. You must be the love that Rome needs." Lucius knelt beside him, cradling his head. "You saved us all." "No," Marcus gasped. "You saved me. I was a killer, an entertainer of death. You made me a father, a protector, a man of worth. The villa wasn't the only ruin that was rebuilt. I was too." As his breath grew shallow, each child came forward to say goodbye, to whisper their love, to promise they would continue his work. With his last breath, Marcus looked up at the sky and whispered, 99 million denarii, but the children, priceless. His funeral surpassed even Livia's. The emperor declared a day of mourning. The Colosseum, where he'd once fought, was filled with children singing songs of gratitude. His body was carried not by nobles or soldiers, but by the children he'd saved, hundreds of them, taking turns bearing the man who'd borne their burdens. They buried him beside Livia in the villa's garden, with a simple inscription, "Here lies Marcus Aurelius Liberi, father to the fatherless." He bought ruins and built dreams, but the true monument to his life wasn't stone, it was the laughter echoing through the villa, the lessons being learned, the love being multiplied daily. Children who would have died in darkness now stepped into light, carrying forward the flame he'd lit. Years later, when Rome itself would fall, historians would note that the children's havens outlasted the empire. Through plague and war, conquest and collapse, the network of care created by a gladiator and a little girl endured. Because Marcus had been right, love is immortal. It passes from hand to hand, heart to heart, generation to generation, never diminishing, always growing. And in the villa that had once been ruins, children still learned their letters, still planted gardens, still discovered that they were precious. The laughter of the mockers had long since faded, but the laughter of children continued, echoing through time like a song that would never end. They had laughed when a gladiator bought ruins for 40,000 sesterces. They fell silent when he revealed secrets worth 99 million denarii. But Marcus knew the truth. The real treasure wasn't in the gold or the secrets. It was in a little girl's smile, a rejected son's forgiveness, a blind child's song, a simple boy's garden. It was in love, multiplied beyond calculation, spread beyond borders, sustained beyond death. That was the gladiator's true victory, not one with sword or strength, but with the revolutionary act of seeing value in the valueless, of choosing love over profit, of building family from society's fragments. The villa stands still, though rebuilt many times. And if you listen carefully on quiet nights, they say you can still hear it, the whisper of an old gladiator and a little girl, reminding Rome and the world, love is worth price, and every child is priceless. In the end, Marcus Aurelius Calvus, Marcus the bold, Marcus the gladiator, Marcus the fool, had the last laugh, not a laugh of mockery or triumph, but the gentle laugh of a father watching his children play, knowing that in saving them, they had saved him. The secret of the 99 million denarii had been revealed, but the greater secret endured, that in the economics of love, the more you give, the richer you become. And in a garden in Rome, where ruins became refuge, where the abandoned became beloved, where a gladiator's greatest victory was won, not through violence, but through tenderness, two graves side by side bore witness to the eternal truth. Love never fails. Love always wins. Love is the only fortune that matters.